Sorry.
All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Come Cloud with Us. I'm Chris Gill, one of the co-hosts, and I'm here with Abdul Kazi, my other co-host. Abdul, how are you feeling today? How are you doing up in Canada?
Much better. I was under the weather this week, but it's much better. Starting to get cold up north. So yeah, doing good. Thanks.
Oh, awesome.
And looks like.
So today we have special guest with us. Oh, sorry.
Is it my Wi-Fi?
No,
I think it might be me or something.
Yeah, you're freezing up, Chris.
Sorry, folks. All right, so today we have a special guest with us, Maria Ashby. Maria, go ahead and say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you're going to talk about here with us today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Maria. I'm coming at you live from New York City. I'm a developer advocate at Kubeshop, which hosts the Botkube project, which I'll be telling you all about. I've been working in the Kubernetes space for about 2 years now, but I've been a tech advocate for much longer than that. I've worked with students of all backgrounds and getting them into tech and math and science. So I'm all about like lowering the barrier to entry. So I think that's why I landed into developer advocacy. But technically, I have my background in industrial systems engineering, and I started getting into computer science for fun, and I've stayed here.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. You mentioned, I think, before the call, and I know you mentioned recent graduate, right?
Yes. I just graduated from USC in May.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So how, so let me ask this question. What made you jump into Kubernetes and open source and, this is an evolving world. So kind of talk about your journey.
Sure. I originally started my tech journey coming at it from the data science side. So my bachelor's is basically applied statistics. So that's how I started my foray. And then I kind of got into data engineering through that. I worked at an oil company and I just basically made the data pipelines from scratch. And then I had this opportunity to teach kindergarten through 12th graders, Python and Java. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And I was actually supposed to take a semester abroad in Paris, but COVID happened. So I decided to get a real job. And I fell into developer advocacy. I started getting onto Twitter. I started talking to people in like the tech Twitter space, and I saw this connection. And actually, I worked at this continuous delivery startup, and they said, "Oh, well, if you can teach 7-year-olds Java, you can teach 30-year-olds Kubernetes." And that's how I ended up in this space. It's all really about breaking down these really complex issues and concepts and putting it in a way that's accessible to all people, because I believe that everybody has the capacity to be a computer scientist, and it's just about meeting people where they are. Mm-hmm. So I've been taking that with me in my cloud native journey. I think everybody has the capacity to become a DevOps engineer, and it's an important skill set for everybody to have the opportunity to learn. And I'm all about making that process easy for other people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges people think or get overwhelmed with. They think, okay, you need to have a strong computer science background or programming background and whatnot coming in, right? But yeah, to your point, no, that's not really needed, but that's great.
Yeah, everybody brings something to the table. You just have to be willing to be a student at all times.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, so with that being said, we'll jump into your presentation then. So talk to us about what you'll be talking about in your presentation.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about Botkube. So Botkube is a project I work on. So for those of you who are not familiar, I work for Kubeshop, and it's a Kubernetes accelerator. So what it does is that they host a bunch of Kubernetes-related open source projects, and they incubate them until they're ready for commercialization. So the project I work on is Botkube, and what it is essentially is a collaborative troubleshooting and monitoring tool that allows you to have access to your Kubernetes clusters and be able to not only receive notifications, but also be able to act on them right in your chat logs. And it really goes along with the accessibility piece because the terminal can be kind of scary for some people. So by putting it in a place like Slack or Teams, it really helps developers who are all of a sudden forced to be Kubernetes experts to have access to the information that they need without depending on their DevOps teams. So I'll get into that today. So I'll be talking about some best practices about Kubernetes troubleshooting. So just a little bit about me. I said this a little bit already, but I got my bachelor's in industrial systems engineering, and I'll be talking about that with the best practices. And I have a dog named Malcolm who is beside me right now, sleeping because he's heard a bunch of these Kubernetes talks before, so it's not exciting for him. All right, so if you have been in the DevOps or cloud native space for longer than 30 seconds, you know that the Kubernetes space is very complex. So in order to be a DevOps professional, you have to know about networking, you have to know about systems architecture, you have to know about continuous delivery and continuous integration pipelines. And as you can see on the left, I have a picture of an outdated version of the CNCF, the cloud native landscape. And it feels like every week there's a new cloud native tool that's so essential for you to learn. So it can be very overwhelming for the average engineer or DevOps team. In addition, troubleshooting is very challenging. So we're now in this remote/hybrid space where communication can be very challenging, and getting people on the same page and giving people shared context can be very difficult. So if you are like a team that I have some developers that are in Poland, some that are in Turkey, some that are in Germany, and how do you make sure everybody is on the same page, especially when you have a time-sensitive issue. So what is Kubernetes troubleshooting? In sum, it is just the process of identifying and resolving issues in a Kubernetes cluster, so like the name. And it can be anything from networking challenges, deployment issues, resource allocation. And it's all about being able to solve your issues with your cluster quickly. So here's an example. One of the most common errors is the ohm killed error. So this just means that you're having a memory issue. So this is a 5-step process. So first you would do is you'd identify the container or pod that was terminated. Then you would check the memory usage of the container or pod, look for any errors, update the container pod image, and then increase the memory limit. So that 5 steps, you're like, okay, it's just 5 steps. But if you're in a situation where not everybody has the right information, so does everybody know which pod was terminated? Does everybody have access to be able to look for the errors? Does everybody have access to be able to update the container or pod image? So when you add on all these steps and giving people the right information, it can take hours or days instead of just minutes, as it should. So all these challenges are exacerbated when you have multiple clusters, because most large enterprises don't run on a single cluster. So when you have issues, it's harder to diagnose them when you have more and more complexity. So you have decreased visibility and you don't have access to finding what the problem is immediately. So this also means that you require multiple tools. So you'll typically have a monitoring setup. So maybe you'll have Prometheus connected, maybe you'll have Kepton connected, and then it's who has access to what source of information, and it becomes very difficult to assign responsibility and in order to solve your issue in a timely manner. So the core of this talk is breaking down the 5 best practices of how to troubleshoot Kubernetes, especially when you have multiple clusters. So number one, you're going to want to centralize your monitoring and observability. So what I was saying before about a shared context, you want to make sure everybody has access to the same information. And then afterwards, you're going to want to have a streamlined setup for incident response and collaboration. So now we have all the same information. How do I solve the problem in a timely manner? How do I get the right people on the job and give them the right resources? Third, you want to establish a feedback loop. So you might not be able to solve the problem immediately. So how do you continuously improve so you can solve the issue? And fourth, you want to be able to streamline your commands. So you don't want to be able to repeat these manual processes over and over again when you can automate them. And then finally, with the automation that I mentioned, you want to be able to automate your observability and delivery processes. So a lot of these issues happen over and over again. So how do we automate it so we can be faster and more resilient in the future? So we're going to finally get to my favorite topic, Botkube. So what is Botkube and how does it help teams follow troubleshooting best practices? So Botkube is a troubleshooting and monitoring solution, and it empowers DevOps teams and engineering teams to work more efficiently and be more reliable and reduce their mean time to recovery. So with Botkube, it acts as an agent and it allows you to monitor and act on your events in the same platform. So you never have to context switch or change screens or send screenshots. You can have everything happening in your chat platform. And this allows you to collaborate with your team faster and make sure everybody is well informed. And this is great for developer experience. So it allows developers to be a part of the troubleshooting process without inundating them with having to become a Kubernetes expert. So you can have that self-service access. And then finally, you're able to run automations and remove a lot of your manual steps. So just a question for the audience. What communication platforms are you using? So in this demo, I'm going to be showing Teams, but I'd like to hear what kind of platforms you guys are using. You can put it in the chat. But just a quick overview, Botkube works with Slack, Microsoft Teams, Discord, and Mattermost. So we pretty much cover the gambit for most of the most popular communication platforms. And for the monitoring, you're able to use Kubernetes events. You're able to use Prometheus and Kepton. And then to act on those events, you're able to use Kube Control, Helm, Argo, and Flux we just added. You're also able to have a ChatGPT plugin, which I'll show you, which is one of my favorite things. And then you're able to automate your event responses. So you can do an automated log every time you get a particular error. And because it's open source forward, you can extend Botkube via our plugin system. So you can easily add a source. So if you're using a different monitoring setup, you can add a Grafana source or an Elastic source. You can add an Argo workflow executor. All those things are available to do, and I'll put the link to the GitHub repo below. And then via the web-hosted app, you're able to audit your events. So going back to that feedback loop, you're going to be able to get a history of all of the commands that were run in your cluster, which I think is great for big teams so they can do performance insights. And finally, it's really easy to install Botkube via the web-hosted app, which I'll be showing you in a bit. So back to our best practices. So the first one that I mentioned about empowering observability. So this is an example of getting a real-time alert. You get your pod error, and you also get a description of what kind of error it is. You get the reason, and then you can easily run a command against it. And you're able to separate your alerts as well. So it's tied to the channel. So you can have a front end channel, you can have a back end channel, you can even create channels for incident responses. So you can, and back to that plugin, you can add a plugin for ServiceNow, and then you can automate a ticket. So there's lots of use cases for Botkube, which I think is great. And then incident response. So going back to talking about those incidences. So here's an example of being able to quickly react to a change that's happening in the cluster. You're able to have all of your whole entire workflow all in your communication platform. And you're also able to get like context. So it's not just a random error. You're able to, filter the logs. You're able to see what kind of what is actually going on in your cluster. And this is an example of the audit logs. So you're able to see not just what command, who ran which command. So let's say you have a new intern and you notice that all the pods are failing all of a sudden. So you can see, okay, this person keeps on running the command incorrectly, and I can see what channel, and I can say, okay, maybe let's roll back their access to this. Or I can see, okay, this incident happened, and these are the steps that we need to take to solve it faster. So I think it's really great for continuous improvement. And from a systems design background, I believe if you don't have a history, if you don't have a data set, it's really hard to improve. So being able to have that information can really help your team's performance. And then here's an example of the streamlining your command execution. So with Slack and also Teams, you're able to build out your commands. So I can't spell, so this is great for me. I don't even have to type. And it makes it really easy for people who are not Kubernetes native to even have an opportunity to learn, kube control syntax in like a gated environment, which I think is great. And it gives developers that self-service access. And then here is an example of an automation. So you're able to not only automate your kube control, you're able to automate tools like Flux and Argo, and you're able to, take out a lot of the manual steps that are involved in the troubleshooting process. And you're able to automate common problems and reduce your mean time to recovery. So here is the updated workflow. So if you can remember in the beginning of this talk, how I talked about that 5-step process. So with Botkube, Botkube will automatically identify the container or pod that was terminated. It'll show the memory usage, and it'll eliminate all of the first 3 steps. So then you can turn your 5-step process into a 2-step process. So you can easily update your container or pod image and then increase the memory limit. So instead of having to go hunt for the first 3 steps, you can have everything available to you in your communication platform of choice. And I think this is great because when you compound reducing 5 steps to 2 steps by however many incidences that you have in your team, you can have a lot of time savings and a lot of stress savings, which I think is even more important. So in conclusion, you need to have a strategic approach to Kubernetes troubleshooting. I think having a system in place for what you should do when you have different incidences and can help you be more resilient and help your team be more resilient when it comes to Kubernetes troubleshooting. And then by just focusing on increasing your visibility by centralizing your monitoring setup, by making communication a priority and having automation on your side, that's the best way to be a more resilient DevOps team. And tools like Botkube can just really help you remove those manual steps and help you enhance your visibility and communication. And I think those are key to becoming a more reliable team. So just quickly how to get started. I'll be showing you the way to do it via the web-hosted app, but you can also install it via Helm or the YAML configuration. There are many ways to do it, and I'll put the links at the end. But I can show you a demo. Let me change my screen. Okay, for my organization, we are using Webpack and Teams. Oh, okay. So if you're in luck, I have a Teams demo. So let me share my screen. All right. So here is what the Botkube dashboard looks like. So we have a few plugins. I have a Helm plugin that I'm going to connect to my sample backend channel. I have the Doctor plugin, which is our ChatGPT plugin, and it will be connected to the front end channel and back end channel. Just our Kubernetes source that allows me to consume events. That will be tied to all 3 channels. So I'm trying to mimic a engineering team's environment. Of course, you probably have more channels, but this is just for demo purposes. Then I have my kube control here, and then we have more plugins here that you can easily configure. So if I wanted to add another Kubernetes plugin, I can do that right here. And I can easily configure it either via YAML or via, via the buttons, but let me not do that. All right, and you can also add actions, so you can do these automations. So let's say I want to add a describe on error. I can make my source Kubernetes, and I can trigger kube control. And then let me go to my Teams channel so you can see what Botkube looks like in action. All right. So I have a sample Teams app. I haven't used Teams natively in a while, so please forgive me if this looks if it looks clunky. But I have the general channel, the backend channel, and the front end channel. And as you can see, we already have an error, and I'm going to put up a mock failing pod so you can see what these errors look like live. So I'm just going to do a kube control apply F for a pod error. So I'm not going to do it in Botkube because I know some people feel kind of uneasy about giving, create and destroy permissions. But you can if you want to, but not everybody. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. Okay, so we have our error. So we get the description, we see it coming up, and you can see that it popped up in all 3 because we have Kubernetes popped up. We have Kubernetes activated in all 3 channels. So let's say I'm the DevOps engineer in charge. Let me quickly describe. And then I can get more insight in what's going on in my pods. And let's say I wanted to, play around with kube control. I can do kube. Get pods. So I can see that failing pod that I just put up. And if I wanted to, let's just say, okay, I have my pod that's failing. Let me see what's going on in my Helm chart. I can do a Botkube Helm status, namespace, Botkube. I think I'm missing an argument. Hold on, we're loading. I don't think I added Botkube. Namespace Botkube. I didn't capitalize it. That was my problem. Oops. Okay, I don't have read write status, so let me just do another command. List. Okay, so I can. Oops. Okay, I don't have my secrets set up, but I can run a helm command to see what's going on. And then let's say I want to, let me put a different error. Let's say I have a volume error and I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to deal with it. Okay. So we have this error. Okay, what if I don't know about, persistent volume claims? Let's go to the front end channel. And let's say I'm, a newbie developer and I don't know what to do with a persistent volume claim. What I can do is I can go to using the ChatGPT plugin and I can say, what is a persistent volume claims error mean? So then I can get my information immediately. And I think this is great because a lot of times when one person has a question, multiple people do. So it's great to get your answers on the fly and be able to kind of have the docs live in your communication platform. And then it's also great for, and I can show you how to add an automation, but do we have any questions right now? Okay, no questions. All right. And let me go back to my backend channel. There's more stuff to do in there. And one thing that's really great is that we have this help function that makes it really easy to, once again, if for that developer service, it'll help you with Helm help, kube control help. So if you don't know what you're doing, and if you're new to Kubernetes, it'll give you all the supported commands. So I think it's really great to have all that in one place. So for when you're like trying to solve things on the fly, you don't have to like go digging through Kubernetes docs and like trying to find somebody's Medium article. You can have everything for you easily and like with the click of a button. And you can adjust your notifications as well. So I can do the same thing with Helm help. So I can do I can see all of the different Helm commands I can do. So I think that's really great for developers who are just trying to navigate Kubernetes. And then I'm going to go back to the dashboard and just show you how easy it is to add a different plugin. So let's say I wanted to play around with Flux. And I need to add my GitHub events plugin. And then let's say I only want, let me not share my access token. Hold on. Hold on, let me put in my token. Hopefully it didn't expire. Okay. So let me share again. Security is paramount. And then I can configure my GitHub source. So we have my access token again. And you can sort by whatever repository that you want to work with. Let me stop sharing for a bit. And while I'm finding my token, do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I don't see any questions, but no, this is great actually. So I'm learning quite a bit because this makes it easier, like even for Teams and WebEx. Yeah, a lot of automation flow now. So yeah, to your point, like who people who are afraid of the black screen, Zoe makes it easier for them. I'm one of those people.
Yeah, it can just be really intimidating, I think, and you're just like, "Oh, I'm gonna break everything." But, it's nice to, like, have this, safety net almost that allows you to kind of play around, and I think one great thing is that you can have your admin or DevOps team, set the different permissions. So, like, not everybody, so you can play let me share my screen again. So not everybody will have this like intense admin access. You can manage your organization. So I can add different team members and give them, limited access, which I think is great. And then this is back to the audit logs as well. So you can kind of see like you can get a window to like what's going on at all times. So from like even just from the management perspective, I think it's great to get those kinds of insights on what's going on with your team. So you can see who's like, had too much eggnog and, accidentally deleted all the deleted all the pods. Okay, I'm struggling with my GitHub token. So what I'm going to do is because I'm a DevRel, I have so many pre-recorded demos. So you will see a pre-recorded demo of me doing a Flux diff with Botkube. I'm struggling. Okay, so
That's fine.
yeah, my downloads folder is like filled with demos. Give me 1 second. Okay, perfect. So let me share my screen. Okay. So we saw this part already. This is Botkube in Slack, by the way. So you can see that a lot of the functionality is still the same. And it still has that like buildable interactivity. So for the people who can't spell, Slack works as well. For Mattermost and Discord, it's not as interactive, but if there's a need for it, the engineering team is fantastic and they will get that settled for you. Okay, oof, not this quality. Not the quality change. Not the quality change. Anyway, so this is me creating. So I have my GitHub repo that has like pod info. So it's just like a sample GitOps repo. So I'm doing a Flux create because I enabled my read write permissions in Slack. So once again, it's only with what your engineering team is comfortable with. So it'll do all the checks for me. It'll generate the source, and it'll show you what's going on. And then I can see all the sources, all the sources in my repo. And then I can do a create customize. So for my GitOps folks, this is really helpful for if your team is transitioning over to GitOps practices. It can give you kind of a middle ground if you don't want to just do everything in GitHub. So then I'm connected. I can easily go to that PR that I just opened, that my teammate just opened, and I can either approve or deny it. So you can have that workflow all in Slack. See, it would have been so cool. Okay, so you can see the changes. You can see the changes. You can see the changes that they made without ever having to leave. I mean, without ever having to disrupt your flow. So then you can do your diff. You can see that it changed. And then you can approve or deny. So I saw that, my teammate changed it from 2 to 3. And then I can put it under the pull request. And then I can approve it. And then it's done. So I think this is really great for that, enterprise level. Okay, we have a lot of people having different access to our clusters. How do I coordinate responsibility? How do I coordinate, allocation for everything? So it's so nice to have things in your communication platform. So there's a history. So it's not like, okay, who am I, getting on a Google Meet with? Who am I gonna, email and they never respond to me? It's so nice to have everything in your like shared Slack channel. And I think it's just really great to get like hyper visibility. So I think Botkube almost serves as like a single pane of glass on everything that's going on in your cluster. And I feel like as the system gets like more and more complex, like all of a sudden everybody's a platform engineer. All of a sudden, like if you don't have GitOps, you're archaic. And having all these different layers, it's nice to just have like, visibility on like what is actually changing in my cluster instead of just kind of like throwing things at the wall and not knowing what's going on. Because the more complicated things are, it can be really difficult to like untie everything when things go wrong. So Botkube is a great tool for that. So let me give you the last slide. So I have a QR code for some of the links I talked about. So you can sign up for Botkube to use the dashboard. So we have Botkube Cloud, and that's free. The only thing that's paid for is if you have like not for your audits for it to be 90 days, and then up to I want to say 15 nodes. So get started and like just let me know what you guys think. We're on Slack. I'm on Twitter. I'm not posting a lot, but if you DM me about Botkube, I will respond. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mean, I just love talking about making Kubernetes more accessible and palatable, and honestly, just like less scary, because it's really important for everybody, whether you're a front end developer, whether you're just sysadmin. Everybody should know what's going on in their infrastructure, because when problems happen, it can be really scary if you don't know what's going on. So Botkube really gives you that insight to what's happening.
Can you kind of talk about the limitations? Like you kind of talk about obviously 15 nodes and stuff. If you have that, that's going to be paid version. But are there any other limitations that people should be aware of, or any gotchas that they might run into?
No gotchas so far. So we're a pretty small engineering team, so I've never seen somebody use Botkube in like a Slack channel with like 1,000 people. So maybe the gotcha would be too many notifications to too many people. But no gotchas so far. We just really want to see how different people are using Botkube. So we're really trying to make it accessible and open to lots of people and lots of different teams.
Awesome. So I know you manage the accessibility, and like I'm gonna put my hand up and say like, Kubernetes rookie. I like to play with it. I like to toy, but I'm in that same very like beginner level. One of the things that I thought was interesting, you mentioned about Doctor and that plugin. Could you talk to us a little bit about like how that uses Chat GPT and how it can kind of maybe natural language like ask questions of the system?
Sure. So it actually came from like just us randomly like honestly me overusing ChatGPT.
Ah,
So what it does is, so Botkube acts as an agent. So it's really just like the gateway between your
okay.
cluster and all these different plugins. So we really just use the OpenAI key. So as long as you form it in a question,
Mhm.
it can pretty much have access to pretty much all the Kubernetes docs before 2022, I think. But what we're trying to do is be able to have Doctor be trained on Botkube's documentation. So instead of having, the Botkube help key, we want to be able to like have those insights of like, okay, these are the problems that you're seeing in your cluster. I'm noticing that you're doing a lot of kube control describes. Here's a run book that we could recommend. So there's a lot
Oh,
of
cool.
work to be done. This plugin, I think, came out, I want to say 3 months ago. That feels like an
Mm.
eternity, but 3 months ago. So for right now, it's more of like a reference for docs, but there's a lot to be done with it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, I could totally see, and maybe this is early product feedback, but I could totally see like where folks want to kind of train based on the historical, runnings in their environment or whatever. So
Yes.
yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it's it's like not just what's available in ChatGPT. You could have run another LLM or OpenAI instance and have other trainable data. So yeah, cool.
We just need a
Nice
bigger
work.
picture. I mean, I think a lot of people, and you know what? This is like, I don't blame them. It can be kind of scary to be like, oh, people are using my data.
Right.
Because a lot of times, most people use BotQ for notifications only because like they're even afraid of like, oh, we can give people the access to apply. So I
Yeah.
think it's gonna take a little while to, especially like with all the chaos that's happening at OpenAI, to give people that much access to your cluster. But I'm hoping it happens soon.
Awesome. 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 Well, I don't see a lot of questions. Just again, thank the viewers quickly. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you. If there's any final questions anybody wants to throw out, please do so. As we always say, hit the subscribe button, please. That's why we keep doing this. We appreciate you all tuning in. We appreciate the folks that come and do these sessions with us, for us, and to just better the community. So, yeah, this has been awesome, Maria. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm always down to talk about Kubernetes and accessibility. Sometimes they're very far apart, but I'm trying to bring them closer together.
Love it. Love the energy. All right. Abdul, any final questions? Any parting thoughts?
No, thank you so much. And by the way, this is our final session for the year. So
I'm glad we ended with a bang.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
with the bot cube.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome, awesome. Oh, we do have one comment. Let's just see. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Thank
All right,
you.
folks. Well, if we don't have any other questions, let's call it a day. Let's call it a night. Thank you for your time. Subscribe if you like what we're doing. And thank you again for a wonderful year with Come Cloud with us. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Hi, thank
take
you.
care. Okay.
Thank you.